Welcome to our office hour. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Mackenzie Loy. I am a program associate at APAICS, the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies. For those of you who are new to our programming, our Women's Collective was created with a core mission to encourage more Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander women to become politically engaged and run for office. We hold these series of office hours as a way to connect to our community of women and to also serve as a resource to those looking to run for office. Today, I am happy to introduce our moderator, Mona Mohib, and speaker, Mona Das. Mona Mohib is a senior vice president in the Federal Public Affairs Group at McGuireWoods Consulting with more than 20 years of campaign and political experience. Mona is also currently serving as an APAICS board member. Our wonderful speaker, Mona Das, is a former Washington State Senator with over 20 years of experience consulting on fundraising through her company Moxie Money, which she also offers online classes for fundraising. Mona is currently running for Commissioner of Public Lands, which is very exciting. So please give a warm welcome to Mona Das and Mona Mohib.
Hey. Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for having us. As Mona Das was saying, this is the first Zoom I've ever done with another Mona. So as Mona said, Mona squared, Mona times two, twice the fun. But it is really a huge honor today to moderate this incredible discussion, which I know it'll be with Mona. As Mackenzie mentioned, I'm on the national board of APAICS, which is an incredible organization and something I'm very proud of. So on their behalf, happy to be here to moderate this discussion. And so, Mona, maybe before we get started, you tell us a little bit more about yourself. Obviously, we could read your bio and we know the things that you've, of course, accomplished. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, everybody. So nice to be here with you all. And thank you, Mackenzie, for all, getting us organized and getting us together here today. And as Mona mentioned, we just can't even stand how cool it is to have another Mona on the line. And Mona, we're just going to be Mona Square today. So we're pretty excited to be here together. Yeah, my background is kind of unusual. It's one of those, typical immigrant stories. My family came here from India with $6 when I was 8 months old. And, my family really came here dreaming for a better life. And I always like to say that I'm very classically Indian. Half my family are doctors, the other half are engineers. And so when I decided that I wanted to run for politics, for political office, my family was perplexed. They really didn't understand why I wanted to do that. And so I always love to tell this story because it has another Asian American woman as an inspiration for me. And so I, like many, woke up November 9th, 2016 and decided and said, oh no, what do we do? And I had this idea, this dream of running for office for a very long time. And it was kind of in the shower. I don't know about y'all, but I do my best thinking in the shower. And I got out of the shower and said to my brother one day, I was visiting him and I said, I'm going to be a senator. And we both just laughed because it was just the most preposterous thing that could come out of my mouth. But it was one of those ideas that I had that I just put on the shelf. And I know you all have those ideas. I call them BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And sometimes you take it off the shelf and you dust it off and you look at it and you still go, this doesn't make any sense. And you put it on the shelf. And that was that idea that I had for years. It didn't make any sense. And then one day I was walking my dog, Cleveland, who, believe it or not, has more energy than me. And we're walking down the street and he doesn't like to stop. So if we stopped, he would start barking and pulling. And I literally saw a sign. It was a yard sign and it said Pramila Jayapal for state senate. And I will never forget that moment as long as I live. And every time I tell this story, I do get a little bit of goosebumps and sometimes I get emotional. But I will say I stopped in front of that sign and I couldn't believe what I was reading, right? So from that sign, I knew three things. I knew she was a woman. I knew she was Indian. And I knew it said Senate. And those were the three things that I thought were sort of impossible. And so for me, I just stood in front of that sign for 5 solid minutes. And I was just bawling my eyes out. and my dog is barking and pulling and wanting to go. And I just stood there in disbelief. And I thought to myself, if she could do it, I could do it. And this is why I say to everybody, representation truly matters. So my journey from, there to here is, very windy, and lots of ups and downs and lots of missteps and lots of, unexpected things, pleasant and unpleasant, right? There's the running for office is not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. My background is in sales, business development, tech. I've been in tech for a long time. I own my own business. I ran a mortgage company for 17 years. So I was in finance. And, I think for me, the biggest skill that I gained with all that experience was learning how to ask for money and not being afraid to ask for money. So in a sales role, like, you're pretty much asking for money all the time. And so I was able to translate those sales skills into fundraising and making it more accessible to people. And that's why I teach classes. That's why I speak in front of any room that invites me, because I want to make sure women, specifically women of color, feel comfortable asking. I think it's been sort of ingrained in our upbringing not to ask for money, not to look needy or desperate. And so I try to change people's mindset around fundraising.
Well, that is terrific. I really appreciate that. One of the things that I just think, particularly for this group, that can't be overlooked is, and I say this all the time, you can't be it if you can't see it. And just what an aha moment for you when you saw the Congresswoman's then state Senate sign.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it didn't seem so foreign. It was literally right in front of you. And so I think that is such an important piece to this. So I thank you for sharing that story. I will never forget that. I say it to my 12-year-old all the time, can't be it, can't see it. So thank you for that. I think today we really want to hone in on the hard skill set of fundraising. And I think there's lots of conversations about what does that mean. But what I really appreciate about what you've done is you've really committed to teaching people what fundraising is. I think people oftentimes go to sessions and they hear things about it, but you really think about the nuts and bolts of what it takes for women, particularly women of color, to fundraise. Because if you want to run for office, you can have all the great policy ideas in the world, you can have the greatest campaign team, but if you don't have the funds or the ability to get the funds to give you the tools to become an elected official, it doesn't matter. You can stay in your shower, as you said, with all your big ideas. So tell us, I have a couple of questions really specifically on fundraising, but what do you think for women and women of color, what would you identify as like one of the top 2 or 3 things that they have to always keep in mind as they're moving forward with their efforts?
That's a great question. I think the biggest hurdle is the mindset, right? It's realizing that people out there do support you, and you have to ask them. People aren't going to donate to your campaign or your cause or whatever until you ask. And once you ask a few people and they say yes, that's what starts to build the confidence. And that's in any fundraising course that they'll ever teach. They always tell you to start with friends and family first. And I think that's twofold. I think first, they're going to pick up your phone call, right? They're going to actually answer the phone or call you back. And second, you can practice with them and they're still going to love you tomorrow. And so I think that really is why people always teach to start with your inner circle of your friends and family first. And if you're going to get first of all, most of them won't actually reject you because they love you and support you, and they want to support you in some way. And so I think that is sort of the first step, is getting over that fear. And that is what my course does, is it teaches people to get over that mental block and to get over that mental fear of actually asking people for money. I think the second is really, as I mentioned before, it's very cultural. I think especially as women, especially doubly as women of color, we're always, we're raised to be strong. We're raised to be independent. We're raised to not need anything from anybody. And so when you are asking people to support you, and especially support your campaign, it really is about that, overcoming that fear of asking and looking needy and looking desperate and looking like you need help. And I think those are things that really get in the way. And men don't, and to be clear, men do not have this. Men will ask, and men are very successful fundraising because they will call their buddies and ask them for money. And it's not, they don't have to get over that mental barrier. I've met a few men that, have taken my class, but I gear to my class towards women, but I do think that men have a lot less struggle in this area.
Interesting. Well, what resources do you recommend for the folks in your classes when sort of as it specifically pertains to fundraising?
Well, one of the things, and you can find this tool online, is sort of like, I forget what it's technically called, but it's like the rings of influence or spheres of influence. And that's a really good one because it starts with, it's really about networking. And the other thing that I do and have done is, I teach classes about networking, and I have actually a book on Amazon called Confessions of a Super Connector, which talks about like different ways to network. And in that, it's the sphere of influence. It starts off with friends and family, and then it goes to close acquaintances, whether it's like your kids' school friends or, parents, people that people that are like in your phone. And then you can reach out to people on LinkedIn. And then you start, and, depending on the size of your race and where you're located, there are lists of people, especially if you do hire a professional fundraiser, lists of people who generally donate to Democratic candidates, or candidates, I should say. I think this is nonpartisan. So, we'll donate to candidates regardless of party. So those lists are available as well. And these are donors that are pretty consistent, that if you call, they know the drill and they know why you're calling, and they want to support candidates that are running in their communities. And the other thing I really talk about is take the me out of the conversation and make it more about we. So it's not what you want to do, it's about how you want to support the community. And for example, when I ran, some of the hot button issues were education and transportation, because where I live is transportation was like, it's really difficult to get around on public transportation, and it's a real big hot button for folks because Seattle's traffic is notoriously awful. And so those are the things that I talked about, right? Like, what is it that I'm going to bring to the community? And what I always tell folks in my training is the reason people are going to support you is because, first of all, they admire the heck out of what you're doing. They can't imagine themselves having decided to run for office. And so that's why they want to support you. They want to, so, you're going to be fighting for the things that they care about, whether it's the environment or transportation or education or safety or whatever it is, their hot button issue. And, it's best if you, can figure out what that is. And if you are, meeting somebody for the first time, you can always just ask, what are the things that you care about? And, they might not know immediately, so you can suggest a few things, and then you can have a conversation about what you plan to do regarding that, or even just solicit advice, right? There's a really good sales adage that I like to talk about, which is, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. So I'll say it again. If you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. And it works. So asking somebody for their advice will ultimately lead them to hopefully supporting your campaign or your cause, whatever that might be.
That is terrific. I can see you doing all this. So this is like amazing. I am what I think is really unique is, what do they say? Like, those who can't do, teach. But you sort of represent both sides of the spectrum, right? Not only have
Yeah.
you been a consultant on campaign, not only do you teach people who may be interested in running for office, so you've been on the consulting, training, education side, but you've also had your name on the ballot, which
Yeah.
there are very few people who are like that space in the Venn diagram who have both taught and also participated. Curious, like, what lessons did you take your own lessons, right? Like, so how
Yeah.
did you apply? How did you apply? What did you find the most useful for you? And did you like, or is the teaching influenced by the running? You know what I mean? Like, I'm curious
Absolutely.
how that works.
I basically teach what I learned, like what I did, like, because I do very unique things. Like I use social media. I use a lot, like social media was a huge part of my campaign before really people were using it to fundraise. Like I always send messages in people's private message, a DM on the down low. And you know, I teach very specific skills around fundraising on social media, because more and more that's where people are spending their time. So you might not get them to pick up the phone. They're certainly not going to answer your emails because nobody looks at emails anymore, but they will see your message on their private social media, whatever social media of choice you have, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, or if you're old like me, it's Facebook. Like Facebook is still my jam. I just aged myself there. But for me, my class, what I actually teach is what I do and how I raise money that's unique. And some of the things I do, you know, are standard. You know, one of the things I always say, depending on your race, right? If you're going to start off running for a smaller seat, you know, something like school board, you're probably not going to hire a professional fundraiser. But one of the things that I learned the hard way was not hiring a professional fundraiser. Because technically you kind of need that babysitter to do call time. And one of the things Pramila told me, and I forgot to tell the best part of the story, the end of the story, fast forward the Pramila story, is that, you know, I decided to run, I ran, I got elected, I won. I'm like in Olympia, which is our state capital. Hang on a second, dogs just got in here. Okay. And I picked out an office. Come to find out, my office that I chose was Pramila's office. Like that's like the raise the hair on your arms moment, right? Like I actually was physically in her office, and I love to tell that story, and she loves it when I tell that story, because it's just, you know, it's one of those moments you can't predict. Anyway, one of the main things that Pramila taught me was, she said, call time is sacred. And if you do say you're going to do call time, which absolutely has to happen, you have to have dedicated blocks of time where you're going to fundraise. I recommend twice a week for 2 hours. I love to fundraise. And I always say, like, you're not going to like to fundraise as much as I do, because I absolutely love it. But I like to do it for 3 or 4 hour chunks. But if you aren't able to hire a professional fundraiser, this is where you can start to use your folks that have said, how can I help you? They can, and you can even do call time on Zoom. It can just be just like this, where Mona is watching me, hearing me. And if I am like, blah, 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 it's not the time to catch up with people and spend 30 minutes on each phone call. That's not what call time is about. Call time, I always say, is like 3 to 4 minutes max. And you can always blame it on the person that's on the other line. Yeah, you know, hey, I'd love to talk, but I am, and this is a really good way to do call time and get off the phone. Something I teach, which is basically like, hey, I'd love to catch up. Right now, I'm calling you about my campaign. You might have seen that I'm running for office, and I'm calling you today. And here's the 5 magic words. Can I count on you? I don't know why it works. It just does. Can I count on you? I think it's, as American culture is very helpful, and people like to help. And so when you say something like, can I count on you? Everybody wants to be that person that can be counted on, right? And so those 5 magic words, can I count on you to donate to my campaign? Another thing I teach is I do 3 amounts. and I make the amounts unique. So now in my culture, Indian culture, adding an extra dollar to gifts is good luck. And so I always say, can I count on you for 501, 1,001, or 2,001? And I tell them what that extra dollar is for. And I can't tell you how many people remember that extra dollar because it's unique and it's memorable. And if you don't have something like that in your culture, that's fine. You can, if your area code in your area is 206, you can end in a 6, or 253 is another Seattle number, it could be $253, whatever. Just figure out something that's unique. Or like I ran for District 47. So it could have been 47, 147, 247, that kind of thing. Make it, because everybody asks for 25, 50, or 100, right? Like that's pretty standard. If you can change it and make something unique about your ask, it will be memorable. And I will tell you, when I ran again, I had a friend, like my fundraiser person had forgot to put the extra dollar on the amounts. And my first friend called me and she was like, hey, it doesn't say 101. So people will remember if you make it unique, and especially if you make it tied to your culture. I think people are now 2023 are looking to connect with all their cultures. They're looking for us. They're looking for women of color to run for office because they have been supporting folks that don't look like us for a very long time. And I think they are looking for change, and they're looking for difference. And the other thing I always say is be authentic. There was a time in politics where authenticity was not expected, but I will tell you that the more authentic that I get with people, the more support that I have. They want to see people who are real. They want to know that you have foibles and that you struggle as well, or you have issues or problems. Like nobody has a perfect life. Like nobody has a perfect life. And if you can bring people in along on your journey. The other thing that I did, I think that was really powerful, especially as a first-time candidate, bring people along on your journey. And this is where social media can be a huge role. So one of the things that I did, I love flowers. As you can see, there's all kinds of plants here in the background. I really love plants, flowers. And so I would do like a door of the day, where every day that I knocked on doors, I would put like one of my flyers in a bush or in the tree or whatever, and take a picture of the prettiest door that I encountered that day, whether it's flowers or whatever it was. And I would talk about the door of the day and what I learned on the campaign trail that day. So there's a lot to, and then you post it on social media. I always say, if it's not on social media, it didn't happen. And so when you're running for office, posting on social media about what you're doing, and this is the other key, when you're running for office, how hard you work to get there is an indicator of how hard you'll work once you get elected. And that's what people are looking for. And they might not like your post. They might not, whatever, interact with you in any way, but they're watching what you're doing. And social media can be a really great tool.
Well, so tell me a little bit about, so you were in the state Senate, now you're
Yep.
running for a statewide elected.
Yep.
Why are you doing it again, and why this race? and why this race? Tell us a little bit about what made you, and I'm very curious.
Yeah. So for me, so I have an environmental background. My MBA is in sustainable business. And most of the legislation I did in the legislature was environment focused.
Yeah.
And so this is, it's really interesting. There's only 5 of these seats in the country. It's a very interesting, the states that it's in. So the Commissioner of Public Lands basically is I'll be responsible for all of our forests, all of our parks, all of our trees. We have a lot of huge timber industry in Washington state, and all of the tidal lands like the salmon and the salmon recovery. And now, sadly, wildfire season, right? We have what we call smoke season. I know you on the East Coast have now experienced a little bit of a taste of what our smoke season is like. And so for me, oh yeah, the 5 seats. So it's Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, which is the only like purple state, and then Washington. The only 5 commissioners of public lands in the whole country. And I would be the first woman of color to ever hold this seat. So that's pretty exciting in the world, like in the world or in the country, like first one ever. So those things are really exciting to me. But for me, this really just goes along with my ethos, which is preparing for the next generation. And our trees are our natural resource in Washington state, and making sure that we plan for them. We can mitigate climate change. We all know how important that is to do if we plan in the correct way. So being in charge of the planning and being able to, figure out how to mitigate climate change. One of my big ideas is I think we need to take a regional approach: California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana, because everyone does everything individually, but the smoke and the fires don't stop at state lines. The salmon don't stop swimming, right? Like, so we need to take a more regional approach. And I think women are just great collaborators, and I think that's something that I can absolutely bring to the table. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, I'm curious. One thing I've been dying to ask you about, and I don't want to take anything away from it, so I'll let you do it. You worked on a film, which is a very unique avenue for people to do, that has won numerous awards, and I am very excited to see it. So will you tell us a little bit what's your film called and what's it about?
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. I have got some really great news yesterday. So the movie is called Badass Women Doing Kick-Ass Shit. It is about women of color running for office. It features 8 women, including myself, and our journeys, basically. And we have now won 12 awards, including one yesterday. The Dubai Film Festival gave us, I know, it's so cool. So it's been such a journey. Like, I had this idea a really long time ago. It's gone through ebbs and flows of iterations, and right after at some point, it was about a year ago, I had this idea that I had the name picked out, Badass Women Doing Kick-Ass Shit, and then I was like, oh, I should do it about women of color running for office. And it's an amazing, so it's been in the film festival circuit since last year. So we haven't had any public viewings of it, or like it's not available to buy anywhere because it's been on the film festival circuit, but that is over in October. And so stay tuned. We'll be able to I think we're hoping to get it on Amazon and, some of the other, stay tuned. We're working on it.
That is terrific. I think I'm very excited. So you'll have to let us know. I know you're very active on social media, so we will find out for sure directly from you. But do not forget to tell us about that. That's great.
So now I can say I'm an award-winning executive producer as well.
Well, I love that.
Awesome.
And then there are more and more, I keep looking up because I'm thinking there are more and more women of color that are running for office. How did you choose? Like, how did you sort of, obviously this could be a mini series, but how did you choose who you wanted to spotlight, and what was that thought process?
Well, a lot of it was referrals. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't just Washington based. So there are, a lot of the folks are from Washington, because obviously those are folks that I knew. But I was able to find women in Wisconsin and Kentucky. There's an Indian woman that's a state rep in Kentucky, for example, which is so mind-blowing to me. I actually grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. So I was like, what? I have to meet her. I have to know her. And then there's a woman that we featured from Oregon as well. So I really wanted to make sure we had geographic diversity. And I will tell you, the most interesting thing to me was all of us, regardless of where we lived or what seat we were running for, had similar experiences. And so that unfolds in the movie for sure. Like you can start to, and one of my friends was like, yeah, just, it was the same kind of thing over and over again. I was like, well, that's what's the interesting part is none of us know each other. None of, you know what I mean? Like, but we're all, and we're all in completely different communities. I was in, Western Washington. One of the gals in the film ran for Congress in Eastern Washington, and we're experiencing the same thing. So there's definitely like a zeitgeist around women and women of color specifically running for office and the obstacles that we face. And one of the things that we talked about is fundraising. And that is and that's why I'm so passionate about it. I think I'm so passionate about teaching other women to raise money because I sort of cracked it, and I can successfully teach it. And I know that if more women learn how to raise money for the campaigns to get the money they need to get their message out, we will have more Monas and Natashas and Anessas, and these are some of the women in the film, because we need them in order to get the change that we need. We need these women to be inspired, and then we need them to feel empowered to raise the money that they need so that they can win. And that is the differentiator, right? Like it's whoever raises, this is the sad truth about politics. And you know this, Mona, you've been doing this forever. Whoever raises the most money is typically the winner. Not always.
Well, this is all really helpful, and that is really naturally would be the place that I would sort of move into maybe Q&A. But before we kind of wrap up, I like to sort of have 3 takeaways, because people need to remember, like you said, the 5 things. This is the 5 words. This is the 3 things. What are a few brass tactics that you would tell our audience, for fundraising or running for office generally? But what do you think are the 2 or 3, or however many real bullet points that they should take with them as they think through their process?
You can do it. Like, first of all, it's about your mental mindset. It's knowing that you can do it. It's practicing. It does take practice. You're not going to be great at it. You're going to flub up a few conversations, and that's okay. You have to keep going. The best time to make a call is after you just got off the phone with someone who said yes to you. Like, boom, like they said yes, you are feeling awesome. You are feeling happy. Don't go take a break then. Make that next call. That's when you want to make the next call. And when you're up and you're excited, and your enthusiasm has to come through the phone. Like if I called you and I was like, hey, Mona, I'm running for office, and like, would you like to donate to my I mean, you have to have some enthusiasm, right? Like, how excited are you going to be if I'm just like, yeah, I'm running for office, and, can you help me out? If you're not going to get excited about your campaign, you can't expect others to get excited about your campaign. You are your biggest champion for your campaign, and you have to be like, you have to bring the enthusiasm, and people can hear it over the phone, right? Like, when I give these classes and do these webinars and give these talks about fundraising, I get the same comment over and again. Like, you have such enthusiasm. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and it comes through, right? It's coming through right now. You all are hearing it, and that excitement, and you have to give that excitement over the phone or Zoom, or if you're in person, talking with people one-on-one. That enthusiasm has to come through, and really get clear on your why, because that's the number one thing people are going to ask you is, why are you running? And it should not start with I'm running. Like, it should not be focused. And this was the hardest thing. I will be honest. This is the hardest thing for me to get over, because I'm a salesperson, right? I do biz dev on a daily basis. That's my day job. And so it's always about your company, right? Like the I. And when you're running for office, it has to be about we. It has to be about the community. What are you going to do for the community? What are you going to fight for on their behalf? And if you can sort of make that mental mind shift of I to we, you're gonna start off on a really great foot.
Well, Mona, I love this. I think this is incredible. And I think maybe you didn't say this, but I think you clearly leave people wanting more. And I think that's such an incredible skill set. So great. And obviously anxious to see how things go with your big race coming up next year. It'll be here before we know it.
Give you my website for folks who do want to sign up for my classes or coaching. If they're interested, I'd love to help you and have conversations with what what's next for you if you are planning on running, and I hope all of you that are on this call today do want to run. But our website is monadas, MONADAS.org. And you can reach out to us. You can see our upcoming classes and our coaching sessions. I love coaching candidates one-on-one as well.
I think we have one question in the audience. So I'll allow her to talk and ask her question to you guys.
Great. Hello.
Hi, Mona, thank you so much for your talk. I really appreciate your sharing your experience with us. Just have one quick question. When you mentioned about asking for professional or consultant to help us do fundraising,
Yeah.
can you recommend who or how, and how do we even approach? Since I don't really know any consultant, any firm or particular, I heard of Emily's List, but I don't know if they actually do anything like this. Do you have any advice on this?
Your question is about hiring a professional fundraiser to help you?
Yeah, or hire a consultant for my next race.
Yes, well, I'm happy to help as well, so you can reach out to me for sure. I think Emily's List might have lists of fundraisers. What state are you in? Is it
California.
Jan? Am I saying it right?
Yes, California, Silicon Valley.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure there are, you can always just use the good old Googles and look for campaign fundraising consultants in California. I can't think of any that I know of in California, but I know there'll be plenty of them for you. Are you part of your local party, Silicon Valley? Like I don't know if you're a
Democrat Party. I attend their events. No, but I'm not fully. I'm a Democrat, but
Okay.
I'm not a part of Central Committee or active party member in our Democrat
Okay.
Party.
Yeah, you might want to just reach out to the chair of your Democratic organization and find out about local consultants as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be a way. But reach out to me, Jan. I'm happy to happy to have a conversation with you too.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, great question. In-person training. Yes. So I do Zoom trainings because that's as in person as we get right now. And I've got the next one I think is on September 19th. So if you go to my website, monadas.org, you can see the information for the next class. And we host those pretty regularly.
I think we have one more question from Sarah.
My apologies. I'm like in a really loud place, but I asked the question about in-person trainings, but I do have one follow-up question regarding, do you do any philanthropy engagement, or do you know of like some way to kind of get philanthropic associations or organizations to kind of get involved in like the funding? Is that possible, or what does that look like?
So that's a great question. Most charitable organizations are 501c3s, and they cannot donate to political candidates.
Okay. Yep.
They are specifically bipartisan or nonpartisan. And most of them, I think none of them, if you're a 501c3, you cannot donate to political parties or political candidates.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mona, there's a question about maybe what advice you might give to your younger self. If is one of the questions. So just
yeah, that's always such a deep question. I think for me, especially culturally, like my family was not supportive. I mean, I'll just say they were not supportive. It was very like I had to like bring them along. They were like, at one point my brother like Googled it. He's like, so let me get this straight. You're going to spend the next year running for office to make $50,000. And it was a hard sell for my family to get excited about what I was doing. And so the advice I would give my younger self would be, you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one that can believe in yourself as much, you know what I mean? You have to, it cannot come from external forces. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it. if this is your dream and it's a crazy dream, it's not a linear path for most of us. And it's definitely not a path that many of your, friends and family have gone down. Very few people know other people that have run for office, right? And so believing in yourself, I think would be something I told my younger self. I had friends that I thought would support me that like disappeared, and strangers that I didn't even know showed up to help. So you just don't know where the support is going to come from. But if you have the passion and you have the drive and you believe, a lot of people believe in like, something has set them off, and now it's like the new sort of like, abortion issue. That's a really big hot button, especially for young women, which I'm super, sad that we have to go out there and fight for our rights again, but also glad that it's mobilizing some people. So a lot of people will get one issue that they really want to go out and advocate for, whether it's education or, the environment. The environment is one I hear from a lot of young people, which is really makes me at least know that our future is going to be secure and safe. And the other thing too, like, I do believe this in my heart of hearts, if everyone voted, we would turn over the people that have been there in office for far too long instantly, right? Like if every single person of voting age was able to vote, I believe we would have a huge turnover in our electoral politics today. So I will say this: get involved. Don't think you have a crazy idea. I also I had to run twice. Like I originally ran for Congress and that did not work out. And then I, in the same cycle, decided to run for Senate and got elected in the same month and year. So I want to say this too: a lot of people have to run more than once. And if that is you, like if you win on your first time, awesome, congratulations, you are a unicorn. It doesn't happen very often. Most people have to run more than once to actually get elected. So know that. And what I always tell people is like, I learned so much from the first time. Did I make mistakes the second time? Absolutely. But I didn't make the same mistakes, right? Like I always say, like, a mistake is not a mistake if you learn the lesson. So learn the lesson and pay attention to what worked and what didn't and what you would do differently. And, just believe in yourself. That's what I would say to my younger self. I believe in you. I think you can do it.
I love that. Well, Mona, thank you so much for your time, your enthusiasm, your sage advice, and I appreciate, as you said earlier, your authenticity. I think that's why the people of your district voted for you, right? Because I think they really got a sense of who you are as a person and what your goals are and what your dreams are. So appreciate being so open with us, and good luck to you, of course. But what I think is really great for this group is your willingness to stay connected. Obviously, you may be one of the more connected people that I've met. But, with concrete advice on fundraising and running for office, but also just sort of advice, I think, for people, particularly women and women of color, who may find themselves as the only one.
Yep.
I think, as you can see from the screen, clearly not. That there is a network, even if you have to look a little beyond your neighborhood to see that. And I appreciate your willingness to and really the support of APAICS to really think about how do we ensure that we are creating a path forward for women and women of color who want to put themselves out there and run for office. So appreciate that. And Mackenzie, I'll let you wrap. Thanks, Mona.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both for coming today. I really appreciate it. I think this was a wonderful conversation, and I'm excited for the rest of our network to also hear your encouraging words as well as your advice for fundraising. So thank you to you both. And then also thank you to our participants for coming today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for the questions. I think this was a wonderful conversation. Again, this will be up on our YouTube account in the next couple of weeks. So follow us on social media at APAICS, and APAICS leads on Instagram for any and all updates on programming